Welcome to Shade and the City. I'm your girl Treese.
It's Nels.
And today, y'all, we are here to get into the family or fiance. This is season 4, episode 7. And this is Don't Get Me Like Kiva and Tobias. Okay. So yeah, y'all. Me and Nels were literally just talking about it backstage. We thought this was a great episode. There were no deadbeat dads in this one. So thank you for keeping that from us. And even though
not on the show. I mean,
not on the show, right?
Yeah, she did express
right.
something like that, but
yeah. So yeah, y'all, we'd love to know what you think. If you have not already, please make sure that you've hit the like button
and that subscribe button.
And y'all, let's jump right into it and let's get shady. Y'all, so we get into this episode, and Kiva and Tobias, we learned that they met at a party. I believe he is 23, or
no, he's 22 and she's 23.
Yeah, they're 22 and 23. They're babies. Okay, they're babies. All right. So they've been together for 16 months total. And they're just hoping that the families are going to mesh well. Now, Tobias has an African background. His family is from Liberia. And they want to make sure that, they calm any anxieties about, cultural differences or anything like that. So when they get to the house, they sit down and talk to Tracy, and we learn these babies are trying to get married. Okay. And so Tracy tries to explain that, y'all are very, very young, but Kiva is convinced, when you know. Okay. And she said, and I know better. And I know if you let him get up to 25, he won't be out here no more. Because somebody gonna be done snatched him up. That's what they say. That's what they say. They teach the YT.
If you let him get to 25?
Well, no, that's what they teach the women. Find your husband in college before he get a chance to get out into the world. Get him in college.
And then he gonna cheat on you when he get out in the world. Because he ain't had no experiences.
That's okay, but he married and you ain't got no prenup, and he got that degree that he done worked on, and who's really winning? Okay. So Tobias said that they courted for 3 or 4 months, and then she ended up moving into his place because it was just closer and convenient to her job. But they feel like it was a seamless move. Everything went well, and they just meshed together. And I said, well, I mean, if y'all were able to do that, then you know what, maybe y'all should. Kudos. Because, that in itself is a lot. I understand. I tell y'all all the time, my personal business is a lot. I'm still battling with it, okay? So Kiva admits that it has not been peaches and cream, but says that they've been able to discover, their childhood issues and traumas, and why they function the way that they do. So Tracy's like, oh, so you got some childhood trauma. Let's dig a little bit deeper, And so Kiva says that, she grew up in a split parent household. Her parents were apparently high school sweethearts, but then, obviously broke up. And she says that she has 9 siblings total. So Tracy says that she sees that there wasn't a lot of space for her to have her needs met, and thinks that maybe that's why she thinks marriage is her reaction to that. And so Kiva was like, respectfully, Tracy, I don't see it that way. Okay. She said, I discovered early on that Kiva could do more and be better and deserve more. And so Tracy said, girl, you talking about yourself in third person. You don't think that's weird? I love when Tracy called, because when she said it and she kept doing it.
Unusual.
Right. I love when Tracy was like, respectfully. That's a sign of a crazy person when you talk about yourself in the third person, but okay. That's if Treese. And when Treese said, that Treese did. Like, I'm gonna
And
start
then
doing
he
it.
said that she does it a lot. That would have
Yeah,
told
he
me.
said she does it a lot. And so, but she said that she figured out what she wanted. And well, she says that she does that because of the expectation she has for herself. So I guess it's more her looking down at herself and like, no, you're gonna do this. And so then Tracy brings up this her taking care of her grandmother or great grandmother who had cancer when she was, I guess, between like 11 or 13. Um, and she said that she learned that she had cancer. She wanted to be as hands-on as possible. And but admits that she was doing it, or she just wanted to be loved and she felt loved by her grandmother. So of course she didn't have a problem doing
It
that.
sounded like she really didn't have a choice because that's where
Well,
the baby was living.
and so Tracy was like, well, how did your mama feel about this? Um, you know, and we learned that mama just kind of left her with the daddy, and mama, felt like, because she worked down the street from the school, like it wasn't a big deal. And she would come, to her events and stuff, but she, felt like a good neighbor. State Farm was there. You know what I'm saying? That's how she felt. She was in good hands with Allstate. I don't know. She had insurance. Okay. Um, and so basically Tracy points out that she said the same thing about Tobias, stating that he was closer to her work. And so Tracy tells her that she's rationalizing, minimizing these massive life transitions. And I said, Tracy gonna break some shit down, give you some words. Okay. So they plan to go get married at the courthouse. I believe they said May. And then they plan to turn around. I thought they were going to say a year later, but then they said, no, we get married in October.
The following October.
Oh, the following October. Not because I said, October come after May.
No, not in the same year.
Oh, okay. Okay, smart. Because I was like, how does that still make sense? You ain't made no money.
Yeah, that's why they said by then they'd be married a little over a year.
Okay. So Tracy thinks that all this is interesting, but she said, well, let's jump into who's coming. So we learned that Kiva has invited her mama, Kenyana, her cousin Jerry, and her best friend Sierra. You're welcome. I got some names this time. Okay. And her family is concerned about their age and their finances, of course, because they're a young couple. Tobias has invited his mother, Rachel, his father, Thomas, and his older sister, Trisselle. Because I thought her name was Tracy at first, but then I realized I had two L's at the end.
No, I thought it was two E's. I thought it was Trisselle.
We're gonna call her T. All right.
Just like Tracy.
And so even though, like I said, that he is from Liberia, however, he has a different way of thinking. Because he was raised in America, and his parents were raised in their country, and so he admits that he's seen his mom be a little bit more subservient than he would like, and that's not what he wants for their relationship. And so and we learned that the families basically have not met, only via Zoom calls, so this is the first time in person. And then of course Tracy gonna give them questions. I don't think I even need about budgets and cake, but it's questions. Budgets and cake questions.
Budgets and cake. So then both sides of the family arrive, and it was pretty awkward. They get into their concerns. His sister said her concern is financial stability and for them to get to know each other better, as well as including their family traditions into their wedding. His dad said putting God first in the center of their relationship, as well as financial stability. And his mom also said putting God first. And if they haven't had a major fight already, she would encourage them to do so. But his sister said, don't go out there just looking for one. Don't be starting no fights. So her best friend Sierra said for them to understand each other's backgrounds. And she basically also said financial stability and for them to both heal from their past traumas. Her cousin Jerry said she would like her and her mom to be able to have to communicate openly better, for the two of them to make sure that they're actually ready for marriage. And her mom said for them to make decisions together and for Kiva to control her temper. I'd have been like, Mom, how he don't want to get the temper? It might just
Right.
be for you, boo. I
Okay.
save all that energy. I'm saving all. Okay. Um, so then they go off and do their tasks. First question for Kiva was what she does for work. I said, "Oh, you's a shady little one, because you know that girl ain't working, girl. Why would you ask that?"
No, I'm gonna be honest. I felt like that needed to be said
I'm
when they brought it up
saying,
because I know that came from the sister. I know that came from the sister.
because and you see the sister is the one that mainly kept on talking about financial stability.
And I'm gonna be honest, as we know, I don't know if it's still the reason, but I'm pretty sure if I Google it right now, the number one reason for divorce is probably still gonna be financial
I
and
don't know if it's the
finances.
number one. I know it's up there. Yeah, it's
That
definitely in the
used to
top
be
three.
the number one
I know it's
for many many
definitely,
years. I don't know if it still is, but that
definitely in
used
the
to be the
top
number one.
three. So yes, Kiva said that she is unemployed, but she's looking. Okay. And she said she's hoping to get a job that she applied for, I guess, because it's weekly pay, just like Tobias. And um, she said that they don't plan to have their wedding over $8,000 based off a package plan that they found. And, they don't see any reason to go about that. Then they asked about her upbringing. She said that God was always very important to her. I said, good job, because you heard how each one of them said God.
It fell to number two. The first one is now infidelity. Now it's
I figured it.
number
I ain't
two
gonna
is
lie.
finances now.
I figured it was infidelity, but I was like, financial, I'm sure it's in the top three.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's in the top three. But because I mean, people, never mind, let me not say that on here. So she said also that her parents were high school sweethearts that didn't make it. She said it kind of broke her, and she did have a temper because of it. She was super emotional, and she would act out of pain and disappointment, and then that brought anger, and said that she didn't have any other outlet to release it other than to be angry. And his dad tells her the best way to do that is to talk about it. Then they asked her if Tobias and her have had fights, and she said she doesn't like to call them fights. Okay, they've had misunderstandings, and they had a very big one back in August. She said it was the biggest obstacle they had to get over, and instead of shutting down, they understood that it was them against the problem. And she started getting emotional, talking about how that's just her best friend. And Mama loved to hear that they actually had a fight. She was excited about that.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, there was obviously a need for him to be there because, this couple to be there because obviously we know she has her childhood trauma and stuff going on. But based off of how she communicates, and this is just my opinion, in my opinion, she comes off as someone who is, if she's not actively in therapy, she has been through therapy.
I thought so too, because even when she was talking to Tracy, because sometimes when you're talking to a therapist, it can be hard for you to express yourself. And she really had no problem expressing herself,
right?
Recognizing things. And I was just like, that's why
even when she called Trace, when she called out and said, I disagree. And you get what I'm saying? Most people would be like a little reluctant to disagree with a therapist because they're professional. Right, right. You know what I'm saying? But even the way she handled that, there's just little signs that shows she's been doing some work.
But that's why I said, yeah, they're young, but they've shown a lot more maturity than we've seen in past seasons or past shows.
From some of the older folks that we've seen.
Yeah, exactly. And then Tobias, sits down with her family, and he has his first question, and it was, what are some of the things you don't want to bring into your relationship? And he said he's African, and there's a hierarchy. He doesn't want to bring that. Basically, his mom is subservient to his dad, and he don't want none of that. Okay.
Right. And I'm glad that they discussed that. He put that out on the table, and he's like, yeah, I'm not. Because remember the last one we saw, the poor girl, even though she won't even wrong, had to go kiss the mama feet or something like that because that was a part of their tradition. And I was like, yeah, that would have been the end of that relationship.
And he said that he doesn't believe that his family would have a problem with it because they just kind of like, it's your life. You live the way you want.
Right.
So they asked him, if Kiva shuts down emotionally, what actions are you going to take to get a conversation going? And he said, we really don't go through that. Okay. She go take her time for 2, 3 minutes, and then we sit down and have a talk. She explains what's going on.
That's another example that she's done the fact that she doesn't let stuff
Mhm.
fester and she takes a minute and then addresses it. That was another thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, he said it's very easy to have a conversation once they get past the initial emotion. Um, he was asked what will he do to foster the communication between Kenyana and Kiva. So even with this conversation right here, I thought maybe he had done some work as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because so he said, when Kiva gets frustrated with her, that's something we work on all the time. And basically he reminds her, just take a step back and, you know, um, basically, tries to make her understand that maybe you're perceiving it the way, not the way that she's saying it because you're already frustrated. And then he asked, he wanted to dive a little bit deeper. This is what made me think maybe he had done some work. He wanted to dive a little bit deeper and ask the aunt, why did you even bring up that question about, the communication? And he said that he thinks that a lot of it is stemming from like the communication barrier that they have is stemming from the 3 years that she spent with the grandmother. And the mom is just looking confused, like she wasn't there full time, like she like what lady?
I'm not even going. Okay, so the way the mother was acting, like she was so astonished by this revelation or hearing this, for a second, I said, "Are we gonna get on this show and find out that this girl up here lying like hell, and she just made up this experience?" Like literally, the way her mother was acting, I thought this was gonna be a
I
plot.
thought so too. So
I
when
thought
they
it was
sat
gonna be
at
a
dinner
plot
and brought
twist.
it up, I said, "Oh, here we go. We about to
Right,
bust some
right. I
bubbles."
thought it was gonna be a plot twist, and they were gonna be like, "No, you a liar," and he was gonna find out that she was a liar. And then when I was like, "Oh no, this like," but the way she acted had me believing this girl might have been lying.
Mm-hmm. Like it wasn't full time. Like I was about to say, what was she just there on the weekends and she just felt like she was just taking care of her grandmama's full time? What is going on here? But I ain't gonna lie, I got to say I felt the same way. I thought the same thing.
Child. All right. So matter of fact, let's get into dinner. So
Mm-hmm.
they sat down and they discussed how the task went, and they get into the financials and how he broke that down and the wedding plans. And so his sister still feels like they're not financially stable and says they shouldn't feel rushed to get into debt. And I absolutely agree with that. Now, her cousins bring up her concerns about how he plans to manage his household, and Kiva's temper comes up as a topic. And so her best friend brings up the grandmother situation and how it keeps coming up as a subject of conversation, and asks Kiva to, elaborate. So she explains that, it was a hard time because she wanted her mother and father, but felt at times that they didn't want her. And that's when she found God. Okay. She shares that she felt accepted by her grandmother, flaws and all. And there were just times that she wanted to hear you are enough. And so her mother clearly has her thoughts, but she's not saying nothing. You could just say it's written all over her face. You could tell it's bothering her. Okay. And so then her mother said, "Well, it's not like I abandoned you. I mean, I knew you was being taken care of." And she blames it on a communication barrier with her father, and
For three
him
years.
him feeling like he didn't have to tell her. And so Kiva said, "You know what? I've moved on. I'm not upset." And her mother goes on to say that, "You know what? You were in good hands. You were with family." And she said, Kiva said, in this moment, this is triggering for her because obviously there's a lot of childhood feelings that are resurfacing for her. And I said, "Well, absolutely."
So what had me confused is because I thought that it was a joint custody situation.
And that's what it sounds like.
No, not to me.
What do
Because
you
it
mean?
sounds like she was never at her mama's house.
To in my eyes, in my opinion, it sounds like they were young or whatever. They weren't together, and she sent her over. It sounds like she was going through a hard time. She sent her to the daddy house
But
and
she
kind
had
of.
how many other kids too?
Well, we don't know if they all from mama. She didn't say if they're all from one side.
But she said that she was at the friend's house and trying to do what she had to do to take care of her kids. So you just sent this one, what, to live with her daddy, and didn't ever bring her over to you?
What I was gonna say is, it sounds like she needed some help, and so she dropped that baby off and never looked back. Even though she say that's not what happened, what it sounds like to me is she dropped that baby off with her daddy, and her daddy had responsibility of her, and her daddy, his mother, was watching her.
That's what it sounded like.
Right.
Like he
And
was still running the streets and doing whatever, and
right, and
grandma
she
was the
didn't,
one watching
and
the
she
baby.
claims that she didn't
And
realize.
like grandma was sick.
Right. And what she claims is she didn't realize, and I'm sorry, but there comes a personal accountability that I feel like she needs to take, because even if he wasn't calling you, no, he's not going to call you and tell you, no, I got this girl over here and I ain't watching her either. That's why she said she didn't feel like neither one of her parents wanted her, because at the end of the day, she got left with her grandma.
Yeah.
So in my eyes, the mama's still at fault. There's no way you can get around that. You just didn't check up on that child. And like she said, she only came by when it was an event or something where she could brag about. And other than that, she went on her business. But as far as taking care of her on the day-to-day, it doesn't sound like she was doing that.
Yeah. All right. So at the next check-in with Tracy, she wanted to know how the task went and asked about their concerns, about the family's concerns. She told Kiva. I don't know why I want to call her Kiva.
And it's crazy because I think her name is La Kiva, but they call her Kiva for short.
Okay.
I think I heard at the end they added the L to it.
Okay. She told her to go a little bit deeper with her cousin's concerns about the open communication with her mom. Tracy wanted to jump into what happened at dinner and said, what's the most shocking to her is that she lived with her grandmother for 3 years and her mom doesn't seem to know that even happened.
Right.
And told her, you have to ask yourself, what in the world is happening where somebody doesn't know where their child is for 3 years?
What was your, basically she's asked yourself what your mama was doing. And I'm sorry, I was so happy.
I thought the lady was gonna say she was on some substances.
And you know what? I mean, even if that's what she said, but I'm so here for Tracy. Like, so much that she said, when I tell you this episode was triggering for me, because I was here for her being like, no, what were you doing? Like, you deserve answers. You deserve for her to be accountable for her missing. And that's okay. And you don't have to feel bad for that because you want answers. This is a part of your healing.
Yeah. And okay, so Kiva said that, she felt ignored, uncared for, unless she did something to brag about to others, like Tree stated. And she told her mom, Tracy told her that her mom
I was gonna say her baby mama. What?
that her mom is probably an avoidant.
Yep.
And that, she needs to get that worked out. And tell her that she needs to sit down with her mom and tell her how she experienced living with her grandmother. And she said that she felt like she was always alone until she met Tobias, and said she thinks that it's going to be a hard conversation because she's tried to have it before, and her mom is going to feel attacked and feel like that she brought her there for this, and that wasn't the objective.
Well, it got to be like that sometimes. It got to be like that sometimes. I'm with her. Go, Tracy. So now, they sit down and talk. And she sits down, she calls her mom, pulls it to the side, and they sit down. And she said, I want to, talk and let's get to a path, start a path of healing. And she tells her that she was surprised that she didn't know she was with her grandmother for 3 years. And her mother starts to make excuses and explains that it wasn't that she left her with her dad, and that was his responsibility. So she doubles down on her bullshit. Okay. And so Kiva points out, like, I honestly, as a parent, if my child were to say that 20 years from now, I think I would just say, I'm sorry. Like, to still try to defend it is insane to me, right? But I guess, everybody has a right to share their experience. So, So anyway, Kiva points out that their parents tend to both pass the blame to each other about her childhood, admits that she didn't feel wanted by either one of them. She explains how her anger is a result of her basically having to fend for herself, and asks why she wasn't with them, or why they weren't there, and if she was a burden, which. So her mother says that she was still learning herself how to be a parent because she was her first child. And she explains that they were young when they had her, and she said she was raised by her grandparents, so she just did what she saw, right? And so then she tells her mother that her nor her father took accountability for her hurt, and how she's still hurt by their actions. And she's like, so she's like, and you still haven't told me how I ended up with my grandmother. So she said, well, I honestly black it out because it wasn't a good time in my life. And she said I didn't, basically admits that she didn't know whether I was coming or going. And to Nels's point, it gives you the vibe of substance issues. And felt that, she was better with her daddy and her grandma. And so Kiva tells her she doesn't care if they were homeless as long as she could have been with her. So, and I hope that if she is in therapy, that they're still doing the work, because I think that with her mother opening up, and hopefully her mother would open up more off camera if they were to continue. And I bet we would find out something was probably going down or going on behind the scenes, and that would allow her to heal a little bit more, because
then she would understand it wasn't better for you to be with me.
right, that's what. Thank you.
It wasn't.
Finished,
if we were
finished
homeless,
it.
you'd have been
Finished it for
somewhere.
me.
You'd have been somewhere else where I couldn't have got you back. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Nope. Exactly to you. You finished my sentence. That's great minds think alike. So she said that the 12-year-old in her has always been longing to be loved. And like Nell said, it wasn't until Tobias came along that she got what she deserved. So much so that she admits that sometimes she doesn't even know how to accept that love from him. So her mother acknowledges her pain and apologizes, and says that her mindset was not the same then. And so she admits that she's had her hardships, and she wishes that she knew that Kiva was going through all that. But lets her know that she's always been enough for her, and they hug it out in the end. And Kiva finally feels that, the burden has been lifted. I definitely think they have a lot more work to do, but I do think it was a good conversation, and I'm happy that towards the end, the mother seemed a little bit more receptive to taking accountability for her actions.
Okay. In the final session with Tracy, Kiva told her that she feels like her and her mom have moved mountains in their conversation and took a positive step forward. She said that she felt a relief when her mom apologized, and said to hear her say that meant a lot to her. So Tracy told her that there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And fawn seems to be what she does with her mom, basically telling her, you tell her, it's okay, just to make her feel better. And said in order to continue this growth, be aware of when you're doing that, and just pull back when you notice yourself doing it. Now, at the blessing ceremony, they received everybody's blessings. Upon returning home, Tobias and Kiva's connection grew even stronger. Kiva and her mother are more open with each other and are committed to a supportive relationship. Kiva and Tobias decided to pull all of their focus on one main wedding in an effort to save for their future, and they plan to renew their vows in a few years.
Yeah. Oh, was that the continuation? I didn't even see that part.
Yeah, that was the continuation.
Oh, okay. Well, shout out to Family and Fiance for no dead, or at least on the screen, no deadbeat baby daddies this week. Okay. So yeah, y'all, you let us know your thoughts on this couple and what you thought about this episode. If you guys have not already, please make sure you hit that like button.
Make sure you comment.
Make sure that you guys subscribe.
And you hit the notification bell.
And make sure you're following us on all the platforms. That's the Blue Sky, IG, the TikTok, and the Facebook, y'all. And we will catch you next week for another round of the family or the fiance. Bye-bye.
Good night.